Now that our GitHub account is created, let's see how to create a remote repository. So click on the Start a Project button on the GitHub website. And then the first thing that we need to do is to provide a name for our repository. So I'm going to call this My First Website and use hyphens to separate the words in the name. There's a few other options here. The description is optional, but I'm going to provide one anyway, and say, this is the repository for my very first website. Similar to Cloud9, we can choose to make our repository public or private. Now, our account only allows for public repositories at the moment, and we don't need to worry about the other options to initialize with a README either. So we'll click the green button and create a repository. Now you can see that we have a lot of commands. If we were either creating a brand new repository directly from the command line or pushing an existing repository, then we can just copy and paste these commands into our terminal. Now our plan is to take the very first website that we created with the Stream 1, 2, and 3 HTML pages, add those to a Git repository locally, and then push that to this new remote repository we've created on GitHub. So let's go back to Cloud9. And when we're in our project, we can just open a new terminal window. I'm going to now do a pwd to print the working directory and make sure that's correct, and then an ls to list the files, and I can see all of my files there, the CSS folder, Stream 1, Stream 2, and Stream 3 HTML. Now remember, what we need to do next is to do git space init to initialize Git in our project. As we can see, that's initialized an empty repository in our current directory. When I do an ls space -a, you can see that our hidden Git directory is there, so that's worked. Now we can start adding and committing some code. So the first thing I'm going to do is add my CSS directory. And then I'm going to add all of my HTML files. Because they all start with stream and a hyphen, I can use an asterisk, which is a wildcard or a placeholder for more than one character. So stream-asterisk.html. And when I do a git space status, we can see that stream 1, stream 2, and stream 3.html have been added along with our style.css file. Okay, so now they're added to the staging area. I can do a git space commit space -m and provide initial commit as our message. As we can see, our files have all been added now to the local repository. So now what I need to do is to tell the local repository where the remote repository is. And we can do this by adding a new remote. So what we'll do is go back to the GitHub website, and we can retrieve the command for that. All we need to do is copy it, and then we can paste it into our terminal. So the command there is git space remote space add space origin, and then a URL to this project repository on GitHub. So I'm going to press Ctrl-C or Command-C on a Mac to copy that, and then I'm going to paste it into my terminal. Now the URL is the URL of our remote repository on GitHub. We've already discussed how URLs work and what they do, but this is just telling us what resources to retrieve. So we're telling Git to add a new remote, and we're going to call this remote origin. The word origin is a placeholder. It could be anything. It could be banana if we wanted, but that's just so that we don't have to type out that URL every time we want to push our code. So now that we've added that, we want to push our code up to the remote repository, and we do that with git space push space -u space origin, our placeholder word, and then master. Master is the name of the main branch inside that repository. A repository can have multiple branches, which are often used for working on the different features. And as you start working as part of a larger programming team, you'll start working with different branches. We only need the master for now. So when I press enter, I'll be asked for my username and password. Now, it doesn't give any indication I'm typing anything in, so just be wary of that. And when that's done, we can see that our code has been pushed. Now, if we go back to GitHub and check our repository, just refresh it here, then you can see all of the code that we've been working on for this project in the repository. I can click on the file viewer and I can view the code there too. So what we've done is taken a local repository from our machine and pushed it to a remote repository on GitHub. Once it's there, to take our moving van analogy, it's now in the secure storage. We can allow people access to it if we wish. Collaborators can download our code, make changes, and request for those changes to be committed to the master branch. GitHub also allows us a way of hosting our projects, and we're going to see how to do that in our next video.